Hi, everybody. I haven't been back for a while because I've been busy at work. Lots of stuff happening in the quantum computing space. Um, NVIDIA is sending AI computers up into space, like literal space. There's, I've been doing articles about agentic AI, about ROI of AI. So, collecting a ton of information and talking to CIOs about what they're working on. So it's been a busy week for me, but it's also been a busy week in the AI space with a lot of stuff happening. And I want to talk about something that Anthropic released that might be interesting to you guys. Anthropic is one of the big three AI companies. You got OpenAI, Google with Gemini, and Anthropic. Anthropic is really taking the lead in the enterprise lately because they have a really, really good coding platform, and that's Claude Code. They got into some trouble lately with the Department of Defense because they didn't want their AI to be used to kill people autonomously or to illegally spy on Americans. And apparently, that was just like too much of an ask for our current government. And they decided to proclaim Anthropic to be like an enemy of the state, which like never happens, and ban anyone in government from using them, which is really, really difficult because everyone in government's using Anthropic. Um, and so Anthropic sued, and the this week the courts ruled in their favor. So that's a good sign that maybe an AI company can draw some boundaries once in a while and say, no, we're not gonna, we're not in favor of killer robots. Wouldn't that be nice? Anyway, they also released a research report. So what they did was they had a survey about what people want to get out of AI, and they had 80,000 people take this survey, or 81,000 to be exact. And they released that survey, and I'm going to have a link in the description box below. They conducted it in December. So this is pretty recent. Um, and so they had a bunch of stock questions that they asked everybody. And then they used Claude itself to ask follow up questions, which is a very interesting way of doing a survey. And obviously, they were serving people who used Claude. So this is a limited data set, but it's also a pretty wide data set because Claude is a very popular AI. In fact, after they were banned by the government, they became the number one app in the app stores ahead of ChatGPT. So they were the most popular app out there because people liked the fact that they were taking, I guess, a principled stand. And especially because OpenAI, that makes ChatGPT, immediately swooped in and said, well, we'll do business with you, government. We won't like force you not to make killer robots. We'll take your word for it that you won't, right? So yeah. But Anthropic's point is that AI is unreliable. It shouldn't be like killing people autonomously. That maybe we don't want AI to do that. And I'm with them on that. AI makes a lot of mistakes. You do not want AI to do that. You also don't want AI to be spying on Americans. So yeah. Anyway, so they did this. This interviewed 80,500 people in 159 countries and 70 languages. Yeah, I think that's the biggest study of this kind ever conducted. It's a new way to do surveys, I think, and it's kind of weird and cool. So anyway, one of the things that they asked is why people are using AI. And the number one answer is professional excellence. They want to get better at what they are doing. And I thought that was really, really cool. And it makes sense because Claude is popular with enterprises. So it's popular with companies and organizations in the workplace. And so it makes sense that, people are using it for work. But in general, people are using it to improve their own abilities and improve their capabilities and be able to do more with these new tools. So that's pretty cool. Another thing that also surprised me is that personal transformation and life management were in second and third place, very close together, which is interesting and also a little creepy. Do we really want to give an AI company that much insight into our hopes and dreams? And especially given the fact that AIs can sometimes go like weird on people and take us into like psychotic breakdowns. So a little worrisome. And then there's other stuff like time freedom, financial independence, societal transformation, entrepreneurship, learning and growth, and creative expression. So that's an interesting study, and I linked to it in the description box below. And another thing that they were asking about is whether people are getting what they're looking for, or whether AI has not delivered. And 19% of people said that AI did not deliver, but others did. In particular, the biggest value that people were gaining was productivity. 32% said that AI has been delivering on productivity, and other areas were cognitive partnership, learning, technical accessibility, research synthesis, and down 6% emotional support. And they also broke out the study in terms of like who was seeing the benefits and who wasn't. So the whole report is very interesting to read through. And then they asked about unreliability and other things that people worry about the most. And so the number one thing people worry about the most is unreliability at 27%, followed by jobs and economy, and then autonomy and agency, cognitive atrophy, that their brains were eroding, and governance, misinformation, surveillance and privacy, malicious use, meaning and creativity, and like sycophancy was also on the list. Existential risk was down at number 13 at 7%. So people are worried about, AI's killing all of us. Um, and and then they, like I said, they talked about the the flip side of things and how people who are using it for learning, some of them have also seen cognitive atrophy. So 30 people have already seen cognitive learning from those who were looking for it as a benefit, and 3% are expecting to see it. And then some of them also said that they're worried about cognitive atrophy, and 8% have already seen cognitive atrophy, and some expect it. But they broke it up because they had so many respondents. They were able to break up the survey who exactly was seeing the cognitive atrophy and who was seeing the benefits. So, for example, students were the ones who had seeing more signs of cognitive atrophy, but more than half had also experienced learning benefits. But like tradespeople who are using AI to learn, 45% said they experienced learning benefits, but almost none, like 4%, witnessed any cognitive atrophy because they're using AI to learn more stuff as opposed to avoid learning stuff, I guess. So very interesting. And Anthropic suggests that AI benefits may be strongest when learning is optional, when it's something that people are seeking out for themselves, as opposed to when people are forced to do the learning and they're looking for shortcuts. And they broke these kind of pros and cons, benefits and minuses through a whole bunch of other stuff as well. Very interesting read. I'm linking it down below. And I'm gonna see you. Hopefully, I'm gonna be back here more next week to talk about more cool stuff that I'm seeing about AI. All right. Bye, everybody. Hope you guys have a great weekend. Oh, and if you have any questions, leave them for me in the description box, in the comments down below.